Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm going to give a moment for everyone to be able to join in. So let's let folks get connected here. All right. So welcome to the webinar. I'm Janet Edmunson, and we are going to be talking about minimizing caregiver fatigue. I'm so glad that you took the time to join us tonight. Okay. Before we get started, while people are still joining, I'm going to do some announcements, and let me share some information about my books and other products. They are available on my website at affirmyourself.com, or you can order them from Amazon and your local bookstore. I'll be presenting the next webinar on Tuesday, June 5th. The topic is persisting in the face of caregiver difficulties, moving from pessimism to optimism. You'll receive the link to register in the follow-up email that you get from us tomorrow. Even if you can't make that date, please register anyway, as we'll be recording it just like we are today, and then you can watch it later at your convenience. I also wanted to make sure that one last administrative item, that you know that we have the ability for you to ask questions. All you do is type your question in the question box, which is in the panel to your right, and then hit send. And you can do this anytime during the webinar, and then I will take a look at them and try to answer them at the end of the webinar. Now, let me quickly tell you a little bit about my background. From a career standpoint, I have a master's degree from Georgia State University and over 30 years experience in leadership within the worksite health promotion field. However, if you participated in my webinars before, you know that I took care of my husband, Charles, during the 5 years he faced a movement disorder with dementia. And it was called cortical basal degeneration. I'm a past chair of the board of directors for Cure PSP and have been a support group leader for 2 online groups and 1 face-to-face group for many years. I currently live in South Portland, Maine, and this is me and Charles many years ago. So now let's get started with this concept of caregiver fatigue. Let me ask you, do you ever snap at your loved one when your loved one is not at his or her best? Do you ever feel like you're running on fumes? If so, chances are that you are experiencing caregiver fatigue. Caregiver fatigue is not just being tired. Caregiver fatigue entails physical and mental exhaustion or weariness. And it can happen so easily when we're caring 24/7. But even those that are not caring for your loved one 24/7 or even caring from a distance can experience caregiver fatigue. For example, my mom a couple of years ago, when she was 86, she's 88 now, she went through a bad period, and we were really worried about her. I lived in Portland, Maine, and she lived in South Carolina, and my sister that lived close to her was the one doing most of the caring and support. But I got to tell you, even me being up here in Maine, I woke up in the night, I worried, constantly thinking about it and wondering how she's doing. So even if you're caring from afar, chances are you're facing a bunch of caregiver fatigue. Okay. Let's look at these 2 sides of caregiver fatigue, physical exhaustion and emotional fatigue. And we're going to start with the physical exhaustion. Most of us are feeling this, and it includes things such as being tired most of the time, The tendency to become sick. I don't know if any of you have gotten colds or flu more regularly now that you've been in this caregiver position, because we do have an increased vulnerability to illness. We can have frequent headaches, back pain, or muscle aches. That can be a clue that we've got some exhaustion going on. And we may have a change in our appetite or in our sleep. I can pretty much guarantee that many of you don't even know how fatigued you are. It creeps in over time and that we don't even notice it. I actually didn't realize how much of a fog I was in and how fatigued I was until months after Charles died, when finally the fog lifted and I started to feel better. Then I finally recognized how bad it had been. Now, emotional fatigue happens when we have exceeded our capacity for emotional stress, being psychologically and emotionally drained. It can slip in without us even noticing, and it's sometimes harder to pinpoint, but it can be things like feeling helpless or trapped. I hear that a lot with caregivers, that feeling of being trapped. Self-doubt. Am I doing this okay? A sense of failure. We develop a pessimistic view of life and the world, and that's going to be the theme of my next webinar in June. And then we find ourselves withdrawing from social events, maybe not because we don't want to go to them, but we just can't. We don't have the energy and, of course, the time. Some of the places where emotional fatigue can come from would include those of you that are facing the challenges of dealing with someone who has dementia. You can get really emotionally tired and worn out when you are always facing false accusations, hallucinations that you've got to keep bringing down to speed in some way, memory loss, repeating themselves. All of these wear at us emotionally. And then for all of us, emotional fatigue can come just from the wear and tear of the daily arguments, interpersonal conflict, the constant worry, or just that overwhelmed feeling just with the responsibilities and the obligations that you have. But caregiver fatigue can lead to resentment and guilt, a lack of sleep, and compromised health. None of those are good. So here are some signs of emotional exhaustion. And as I go through them, I want you to see if you experience any of these. First is low tolerance to stress and stressful situations. Do you get to where, you got a quick fuse here? Inattentiveness, inability to focus, where we make simple mistakes. Another sign of emotional exhaustion is just when we have a lack of motivation and a zeal for life. It just depletes that motivation. So it takes real initiative to get your goals done. And you sometimes just feel psychologically paralyzed. Another sign of emotional exhaustion is the loss of creativity. And of course, physical fatigue. So what can we do about emotional fatigue? How can we get a handle on it? I'm going to go through a list of things, and I'd like you to list it. I hope you have a pencil and paper. I'd like you to list down the things that you think might be helpful for you. Now, first is to pick your battles. Ignore some peculiarities. Just let them go. So what? Use humor. So I remember there was a woman in a Lewy body dementia support group that I spoke to who really had some great stories of how she used humor to diffuse the emotional assaults that she was getting. And her husband was always accusing her of having men there. And so he said one morning, "You had 2 men in your bed last night." Well, she quipped back, "Yeah, that's why I got the large comforter." So humor, if you're good at humor, use it. It's a way to diffuse and to diffuse that emotional fatigue. Join a support group. I'll tell you, it really helps to know that other people are feeling the same thing. You might even get a new best friend from a support group. I actually did get two very, very good friends that have become very close over the years from the support group. So it's just a good way to know that you're doing okay, talking to other people going through a similar situation. Then another way to deal with this emotional fatigue is to spot small opportunities to rest your mind. Even if it's just a few minutes, we can do a little relaxation or meditation. Find a spare minute for that. Maybe it's just deep breathing or mindfulness. Mindfulness is just where you're really in the present, looking around and looking at the good around you. Another thing that you can do to combat emotional fatigue is take things one step at a time. Also prioritize. Not all things are worth doing, so stop the low yield activities. Just stop them. Another important way to combat emotional fatigue is to ask for help. Now, that's a tough one for a lot of people, but I'm going to say it a couple of times throughout this webinar because it is so important. Even with family members, rotate responsibilities so that you don't have all of those on your shoulders. Another way to combat emotional fatigue is to get a change of scenery. Mix up your environment to have a positive impact on your mental state. Get outside, go to someone else's house, go to the mall, things that just change it and mix it up a bit. Stay social. Old friends who understand us are great to stay in touch with. And then new friends that you'll find with your online or in-person support groups can also help you stay social. In addition to the tips that I just gave you, I'd like you to also look at what drains and depletes you, what energizes you. And Deborah, yeah, I was just reading, they're not up on the screen. So let's look now at what depletes us. Oops, let me get it going here. Here we go. Okay, let's start first with an empty sheet. Let's try this exercise to begin to explore what's going on for each of us. So first think about things that are draining you. What's depleting you, pecking away like this woodpecker at the fabric of your being. So I encourage you when we're done today to make a list of the things that are draining you because it really helps to get them out, get them on paper. So let me give you some ideas. If you're dealing with dementia, things that can drain you might be the negative impact of memory loss and just how much patience that requires all day long. And then we've talked about hallucinations, but there's also delusions or paranoia, which take a lot of creativity and quick thinking to diffuse, which can really wear us down. If you're dealing with someone with a movement disorder or other debilitating illness or disability, MS, cardiovascular disease, diabetes that's laden in its effects, and kidney disease, you name it. The things that can drain you then might be just how long it takes for everything. You've got to get them dressed and cleaned and blah, blah, blah. So you run out of time at the end of the day and something has to give. And then in general, the things that might drain you include all the extra stuff you need to do now that maybe you weren't doing before your loved one was sick. Like I know some people end up having to do home finances that was foreign to them beforehand, or housework, or cooking that they never did. So these are actually can be things that can be draining for you. And then another thing that you can think about draining is not having someone to turn to or to talk to. That can be another way that you can get drained. So now I'll show you my list of what drained me when I was caregiving. So cooking, because I am not a cook, and Charles did all the cooking. So wow, that was falling on my shoulders. We ended up doing a lot of lean cuisines, I'll tell you, and things out of jars. Worry, that drained my energy, and I am a good worrier. I really do struggle with and have to really concentrate to not let worry take over my thoughts. And then when Charles we had years of incontinence, it just got to be, one catastrophe after another that was just hard to deal with. Then they had the frustration over the time period where Charles was losing his speech. That was so draining, trying to understand and struggling, and then trying to communicate when he couldn't speak, and just the frustration of that he had and that I had trying to figure it out. Getting Charles ready in the morning and at bedtime was a real drain. I ended up getting some help for that down the road, but also we needed to do his range of motion exercises every day. Those are the kind of things that just day in and day out. And I would probably throw in here filling up his pill box. I bet some of you relate to that, but that's a drain. But when I got hospice, they filled that up, and that was such a nice thing. And then the other thing, fixing something that was broken at home. I never did the fixing. Charles did. So that was a little scary for me. And then just no time for me. So sometimes when we've got this list of things that drain our energy, which I hope you'll write your list after we're done, we just need to sometimes just accept that these are part of our caregiving challenges. As sometimes there's not much we can do about them. We can get extra help outside, which I really encourage people to try to do in any way, shape, or form that you can. Because if you can get some help, that can give you time for the things that build your energy, which is what I want to have you list next. So when we're done tonight, make a list of things that build your energy and your zest. So think about what those might be. These are the things to focus on when you can steal a minute here and there. You may not have a lot of time for them like you used to, but still getting a little time can totally lift your spirits, like this woman who's just taken a little time to do some painting. These are also reasons, as I mentioned, to consider getting help so you can have time for these things that do build your energy. So here's my list of things that build my energy to give you an idea as you think about your list. One is I loved visitors. This is a picture of some of my family and my mom. And we would do another thing that I love, which was take Charles for a walk and get out and walk myself. But I love visitors. I'm an extrovert and I need this type of interaction. However, as already mentioned, I do still need some time alone. I need time to decompress and get through, writing checks and other, things that need to get done. So even though I'm an extrovert, I do still need some time alone. That's on what builds my energy. As I mentioned, walking, but also I was a runner at the time, and getting on the treadmill really helped. I've been active all my life, and I needed to maintain that as best I could. Watching a great movie would also relax me and help build my energy. And then the other treat that Charles and I had was daily frozen yogurts. And I mean daily, we did not miss a day. And I so much believe that we all, in the power of having something to look forward to. So we all need to have something to look forward to every day. For us, it was frozen yogurt. I hope you'll find something that you can look forward to every day. If it's just stealing a little time to read or enjoying a little Lindt chocolate or something that can be something that you can think about during the day and look forward to. And that built my energy, as well as talking to friends and family on the phone. Like I said, I'm an extrovert, so I couldn't get out a lot, but it was great when I could talk to them on the phone. After you've written your list, see how you can fit in at least one of these each and every day. Make it a priority to get precious time, even if it's a little bit, to do what builds your zest and your energy. And then also it helps to take advantage of when your loved one or you have more energy and strength. So you've got those ebbs and flows during the day, and there's certain times that you're going to feel that you have more strength and more energy. For me, it's in the morning. So that's the time to fit in some of these things that build your energy and to do things that you enjoy, or to get the hard stuff done too. You might want to do a journal to see when your best energy times are. And maybe it's just those are the times to try to have more quality time with your loved one. So what to do about physical fatigue? And let me just mention, because Deborah had mentioned it, this bullet list is not going to be coming up. I want you just to enjoy the picture, but think through as I give this list and jot down things that you feel are helpful for you. So to handle the physical fatigue, recognize that it's present and that it can negatively affect you and your health. So just being aware of it. Eating well, as we all know, but also I found I started to gain weight during my caregiving experience. I went up 2 dress sizes, probably because I wasn't eating well. And there was a lot of fast food coming in that I didn't usually eat because that was the easiest. Some of you may have the opposite. You may end up eating less and lose weight, which you don't have a reserves then if you get sick. So that's not good either. Another thing you can do about physical fatigue is get adequate hydration. Drink more water. They say that water gives you energy because dehydration zaps your energy. So get a glass of water, watch yourself, make sure you drink a glass in the morning, a glass in the evening, some at lunch, and just try to get those liquids in. You'll know that you're getting enough liquids, as the doctors say, if your urine is clear, pale yellow, or at worst, straw-colored. Next way to do something about physical fatigue is to fit in some kind of activity. So I know you're going to say, I don't have time and I'm too tired. Well, this is why exercise is so good, because physiologically, it'll actually give you more energy. Here's how that happens. Mitochondria are in your muscles and in your brain, in your cells. They are the energy factories. And when you exercise, you build more of those. You make more of those. So that's why you end up having more energy. Another thing to do about physical fatigue is just have time doing nothing. I have had people that have told me, especially if they're dealing with very difficult dementia type diseases of their loved one, that even if they go out in their garage and hide, or in their bathroom for 10 minutes, just on their own, sometimes that can be enough to strengthen them and get them to have a little bit more energy to continue on. Keep time with your body clock. I've already talked a little bit about that. If you're a night owl, that's when to get some stuff done. If you're a morning lark, that's when to get stuff done. That's genetic, whether you're a night owl or a morning lark. So schedule some of your demanding activities when you've got that greater sense of peak energy. And then finally, what to do about physical fatigue is to get enough sleep. And that's what I'd like to spend the next few minutes discussing. And some of you might be rolling your eyes like, what do you mean get sleep? That's impossible. But let's talk about that. Let me tell you first of all about my experience, which was a very difficult one regarding sleep. Charles went through a period of at least a year, I think it was more, where he would wake up every hour. And I knew I needed to get better sleep. I wasn't able to go back to sleep after getting woken up so much. And it would be that he needed to be turned over. The other thing that he would do is he would be jerking and, that kind of thing in sleep. So it really was hard for me to get good sleep. So one thing that I did, which really should only be a temporary help, was I did Tylenol PM to get that Benadryl so that at least if I was woken up, I could get back to sleep. Now I'm hearing that medications aren't the best way to go about this. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then because of Charles's moving around, I decided that I needed to roll off the bed and sleep on the floor. Now, the reason I did that was because Charles would lash out and say, you don't want to sleep with me. And you don't want to be with me. So I knew I couldn't say, okay, I'm sleeping in the other room now going forward. I knew that wouldn't work. So I slept with him until he fell asleep, and then I rolled over and slept on the floor, and actually on the carpet on the floor, until my mom came up one time and said, "Well, why don't you at least put some cushions down there?" Which I eventually did. And then once I had hospice, Charles went into a hospital bed, and I moved down the hallway. We had a bedroom with the hallway that was connected to a den at the other end, and I slept on an aero bed. And then I started to get pretty good sleep because at that point, too, he was sleeping better as well. So that's my experience. So I relate to anyone who's struggling with the sleep issue. And then I am a worrier, as I mentioned, so that always is something that has interrupted my sleep for years. Like Charles, your loved one may also have sleep issues that can affect your sleep. Or your loved one may be difficult during the day and not at his or her best. So maybe you had a bad argument that day, or you were the victim of an unfair accusation, and all these emotional issues can interfere with good quality sleep. Or maybe it's just the general worry, like I have, that you have over your loved one's illness, maybe over your finances or over other issues that keep you up at night. And then there's the fact that when caregiving, everything takes more time, leaving less time for you and the sleep you need. All those other priorities get in the way. So, with all these concerns, can we ever get enough good quality sleep? And why is it important to even try? So, why do we need sleep? I don't know if you've heard some of the interviews with Matt Walker, who has his book called Why We Sleep. He's been on a lot of shows lately. But what he says, and this is borne out by other research as well as his, is adults, especially if you're over 65, you need 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So ask yourself, am I getting 6 to 8 hours? Now, I need closer to 8. I know that. And we sleep in 90-minute cycles. Now, within those 90 minutes, we have two major stages of sleep that go on. One is non-REM sleep and the other is REM sleep. Now, REM stands for rapid eye movement. You may have heard that before. So the non-REM sleep starts first, and it's actually 3 stages in and of itself, where you move from lighter sleep to deep sleep. That non-REM sleep is followed by REM sleep, where we dream and your brain is very active and it's doing all that important work of healing and putting down memories and all of that great stuff. What's important to realize is that the percentage of REM sleep increases in those 90-minute cycles over the course of the night. So you get less in the first 90-minute cycle, more in the next 90-minute cycle, and then more and more as you sleep. So if you're getting less sleep, you're getting definitely less REM sleep because that becomes more the majority throughout the night. Here's what's happening during sleep, according to Matt Walker. Our brain is putting down memories and cements our learning. That's why when we're not getting enough sleep, we're not able to remember things, right? It washes away toxins, and the research shows that that can help prevent Alzheimer's. It fortifies our immune system so we can fight diseases. We'll get sick less. When we don't sleep enough, it decreases our killer cells by 70%, up to 70%. And the killer cells are which help our immune system and helps fight cancer. Sleep increases our creativity and insights. You know, they've said sleep on a problem. Well, there's some truth to it. When we get sleep, we get those new thoughts and creativity happening. Sleep is also an anti-inflammatory, so it's like nature's Advil. And the more tired you get, though, this is interesting, the more tired you get, the less tired you feel, which makes you think you're not shorting yourself of sleep. So you may not even be aware that this is having a big impact on you. So how can we get better sleep? Let's start first with sleep habits. The first habit is to make it a priority. You know, unless you make it a priority and let other lesser important things drop, you won't get enough sleep. So what else can you not do to give you more time for sleep? Another sleep habit is to get into a real calm before you go to bed. So that can happen by taking a bath, reading a book, you turning the lights down a little low, doing some meditation. There are some apps on the phone that you could use to learn them, and then you don't want to use them on the phone when you're trying to get ready for bed, but learn them. I've heard that there are two that you could look at, one called Headspace, the other called Calm. And in this calm time before bed, no TV. Get off the TV early enough to just let everything settle down. And then another sleep habit is no stimulants or sedatives before bedtime. So what are the stimulants? Caffeine. Even smoking is a stimulant. You might think it's not. You might think it's to calm you down, but it actually is a stimulant. Alcohol is a sedative. And what Matt Walker says is that it fragments sleep throughout the night and it blocks our dream sleep. So that's not good. And marijuana also can drop our dream sleep. So keep those in mind. Oh, and I've got Tom on the question box that says he uses Headspace and it's excellent. So thank you, Tom. I hope people will give that a try. Again, Headspace, it's an app for your phone. Another sleep habit is to get activity during the day, but not too late into the evening. Set a schedule. Your body works on circadian rhythms, and it's better when it's consistent. So go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. And your body needs that consistency. That can really help. Limit your naps. Napping early in the day can be okay, but only if you feel better after the nap. And researchers say don't nap after 3 p.m. And then reserve the bed for sleep. It's not a place to do your work or to recreate. It's a place to sleep. And then get sunlight during the day. That sunlight works to make you ready for sleep. And then get it dark in the afternoon. And then get into bed only when you're sleepy. So those are some sleep habits. Let's think about your sleep environment. First of all, you want your room dark when you're sleeping. So watch out for all those little gadgets that have the little blue lights and whatever. Cover those up. And then I hope you have discovered motion detector night lights. So they're wonderful. So if you haven't, you can get them at Lowe's and Home Depot and Amazon. But when you step out of bed, if you've got one right there, it'll turn on. And then once you're back in bed, it'll turn off. And it keeps a nice low light so that you're not getting that bright light. When you turn on a light, which sometimes you need that if you are older and worried about falling. But I know even with my 88-year-old mom, these motion detector night lights have really helped. She's got one right by her bed and one in the bathroom. And then once you go back to bed, they're going to eventually shut off on their own and again, make your environment dark. You want a cool room, so turn the air cooler. And keep your tech out of your bedroom. Again, that blue light decreases our melatonin, and melatonin helps time our sleep so we can fall asleep. And I have Diana saying, or wear an eye shade or an eye mask. Absolutely, that's another thing to do. But get the kind that don't sit right on your eyes, otherwise they can dry your eye out. Good point. All right, next. Let's look at tips for falling and staying asleep. Now, I heard this. I don't know the research for it, but I have found it to work for me. And they say that when you go to sleep, your tongue falls off the roof of your mouth. So when you're trying to go to sleep, take your tongue off the roof of your mouth. Just let it relax. And that will be a trigger to the brain, they say, to help you fall asleep. That's a little trick, but it works. I encourage you to have a pad of paper by your bed so that if something's bothering you, you write it down. You got something you need to do, write it down. Don't keep it in your head because then it's going to spin around and keep you awake. We talked about relaxation meditation before you go to sleep. If you find that you can't sleep or that you're waking up in the middle of the night, can't go back to sleep, first of all, try deep breathing, which is just breathing deeply in and out, and that just kind of settles things down. You can count down from 10, breathe in, 10, exhale, work your way all the way down. Another relaxation technique that people like to try is progressive muscle relaxation. I used to do this when I was a kid, when I couldn't sleep. And what you do, you can start at your feet and work your way up towards your head, and you just contract a muscle, like you might pull your toes up real tight for a little bit as you take a deep breath in, then exhale and relax them. And then you work your way up your body to your calf muscles, your thigh muscles, your butt muscles, etc. By the time you're somewhere up top, you've fallen asleep, hopefully. But all of this helps for this one reason, is you want to distract yourself. So when you think of other ways to distract yourself, one other tip that I've learned that really has worked for me, I'd say about 70% of the time, is to recite lyrics to a song. So my go-to song is America the Beautiful, and then I can think of, the seas and the mountains and the fields, and I get those visuals in my head as I'm saying the words, and like I said, about 70% of the time I'm asleep before I get to the end of the song. If you can't sleep, sometimes it's good to just wake up, read a book for a little bit to get you back down, or do those other calming things. And they say if you can't sleep after 20 minutes, you definitely need to get out of bed and do those calming things. So if you're laying around, that's not a good thing. Some of you have already put some of your ideas down in the question box. So if you've got other things that help you fall asleep or stay asleep, type them in the question box and we'll look at those at the end of our session. Another way for getting better sleep is called cognitive behavioral therapy. Now, you may have heard that for other things. You go to a psychologist to deal with your issues, and they do cognitive behavioral therapy for you. But they're finding that this really can be something that can help with sleep. So it targets our thoughts and our actions that are disruptive to sleep. It replaces anxiety related to poor sleep with positive thoughts that associate being in bed with being asleep. So therapists and psychologists that are trained in this can be ones who teach this to you and help you learn it. And it can be more effective than sleep medications. So I really think it's something to try. Now, I do my own little modified cognitive behavioral therapy. And that's if I can't sleep and I'm lying there, I talk to myself. And so I'll say things like, I deserve sleep. I have everything under control. Everything will be fine. I made it through today, so I'll be able to make it through tomorrow. I have everything prepared for tomorrow, so no need to worry. So those are the kinds of things I say to myself. And just by saying it and repeating it, they're positive things that give me a positive thought, and that can help me go back to sleep. That's not the official cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's a component of it, and it's something all of you can try. But if you'd like to know more and you don't have time, because I can hear you right now, I don't have time to go to a therapist, which I didn't either. I needed one, I wanted one, but I didn't get one until I had hospice and they came to my home. But there are online cognitive behavioral therapy programs now. I have not tried any of these, but there's a sleepreviewmag.com listed these, and I did look into them. And many of them have some good studies to show that they are showing promise to really help. So take a look at these. I'll keep them up here for a moment so you can jot them down. CBT for insomnia, Cobalt Therapeutics, Restore, Shut Eye, and Sleepio. And take a look, read what they say about their research, and because there's a cost to these programs. But if you're really struggling with sleep, especially if you're on medication for sleep, this might be a good, real next step to try so that you can maybe get off the medications. Because let's talk about medications. Some big cautions here. So first of all, let's look at not sleepy medications. Let's look at other medications you may be taking or your loved one may be taking. So for instance, for people with Parkinson's, some of those medications can interfere with sleep. So ask the doctor about that. But if you're taking medication for anything, check about whether it will interfere with your sleep. And if so, maybe there's a type of med that you could do, or just at least be aware that that can have a problem. Another medication that can be good, that can possibly help with sleep without maybe some of the side effects of the sleep medications, are some antidepressants. So I'm going to tell you a story about my mom in a minute. But what's working for her now is an antidepressant. And she is sleeping so much better than she did when she was on a sleep medication. So now let's talk a little bit about sleep medications. What sleep medications do is they sedate us. And when you're sedated, you are not in a really good sleep. You're not going through those stages of sleep in a good manner. So yeah, you're sleeping, but it's not good quality sleep. Here's the thing that we're learning now about some of these sleep medications is there's an increase in death and cancer with sleeping pills. And then with Benadryl, which I think is probably the least worrisome of all of them, we took my mom to a senior gerontologist type person, and she said the Benadryl actually dehydrates us. And again, I explained how important being hydrated is. So just be aware of that. All sleep meds are supposed to be for the short term, and many of us are starting to use them for the long term while we're caregiving, and so we want to be careful about that. There are many others, but I did want to mention Ambien because I have the firsthand experience with it. Not only when we had Charles try it, but also I wanted to tell you about my mom. So that's what was given to my mom to sleep, and she would start with a half a pill and wake up in the middle of the night, take another half. And she did this for years. And at the time, the doctors thought, no big deal, no problem. Well, if you've been up on the research, you will know that Ambien now is starting to have some concerns. People are having car accidents. There's a lot of unexplained things happening to people that are on Ambien that are very frightful. For my mom, she started passing out. She'd be carrying her groceries up, and she'd be just walk off the elevator and nearly collapse. And she'd be with other people, and they'd help her get to a chair. But then in the middle of the night, she'd get to go to the bathroom, and she'd actually pass out and fall. Some bad falls took her to the hospital. And not knowing what was causing this at first, we played with a lot of different theories and things, but it eventually ended up being the Ambien. We took her off the Ambien, and all of those things stopped. In addition to extreme fatigue that she was going through, and she just wasn't feeling good. Wasn't able to even get up and get out and do the things she liked to do. So be aware of that. All right, so there's my scary part about sleep meds. But do talk to your doctors, and again, try to use some of those other techniques, cognitive behavioral therapy, etc. instead. Now, better sleep for your loved one. And actually, I see that we've got a question from Anne here as well. So how can you promote better sleep for your loved one? Well, first of all the things we've already talked about are things to get in play with your loved one. Getting that calm environment, the darkness, etc. Restrict eating and drinking right before bedtime so they don't have to get up real quick there. Check their medications to see if they're interfering with sleep. Check with their doctors and the materials you have on those. And then if they do get up, remain calm. A lot of times we're so frustrated that they're waking us up. And then that's just adding to their frustration, and then it's just things are not going to be good. So those are some of the things. Anne asked, was there a sleep aid that helped Charles? My relative has CBD too and wakes constantly. Anne, we tried every sleep medication there was. Just Ambien as an example, a lot of antidepressants. And I'll tell you, the only thing that eventually worked for him was the antipsychotic drug, which he needed for other reasons as well, called Seroquel. So you could talk to the doctor about that if they're not on Seroquel, whether it's something that you could try. It's not. Some people do good on it. Some people do terrible on it. But that's what worked for Charles to finally get him to go to sleep. But do keep trying lots of different things. And Deborah's saying that her dad is on Seroquel as well. And Kathy asked, what about melatonin for sleep or CBD oil? So melatonin, yes. But melatonin helps you fall asleep. It's not going to be what's going to help you stay asleep, but absolutely melatonin. I don't know about CBD oil. If you don't know what CBD oil, it's the oil that comes from the marijuana plant. But I would say that basically it may be worth a try. I don't know if it would hurt. Talk to your doctors about it, because it's always important for your doctors to know what non-traditional things that you're doing in addition to the drugs that they're giving. But I do not know if it works. I don't know that there is really any research on it, but it is something that you could try. So thank you for those. Melatonin for PSP patients, I do not know, Deborah. I have not heard that it wasn't recommended, but certainly ask the doctor. And Gail is saying, I'm getting a lot of things on the CBD oil. Gail is saying that CBD oil comes in a variety of formulas. Her brother uses one with a very low THC. So there's no psychoactive effects. Yes, you can get CBD oil with no THC. THC is the psycho piece of the marijuana plant. So you can get CBD oil with none. And it's worked for someone in your support group. Thank you, Kathy. When nothing else did for their dad. Well, there you go. We've now got someone who said to give it a try because it could work. Nanette, blind and visually impaired with sleep issues. I'm sorry, I do not have any experience with that. I really can't address that, but certainly something to talk to the doctor. All right, so let me continue on, then I'll go over any comments that you've given that I've missed. I'll go over them in the end here. So I wanted to put up some resources. You can get a lot more information on the National Sleep Foundation website, and also from Matt Walker's book, Why We Sleep. And then I've already given you the CBD online, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy online programs. So I'd like you to think about what we've talked about today and think about one or two things that you want to be your ritual going forward. And I'm going to now get to your questions. And I do have a final, I hope you'll stick to the end because I've got a final cartoon that I think really is an important one that I hope you'll stay for. But let's go ahead and get to your questions. If you haven't found the question box, it's over there to the right. And you just type in what you want and hit send, and it pops up here for me to read. So let me start with what we got earlier today, I haven't gotten to. So Tom wrote, I find myself not going to social events because I feel I might bring the party down, because everyone knows that I am taking care of my wife with MSA. Oh, that's sad. Some people actually avoid me because of my situation. So Tom, let's talk first about people avoiding you. Yeah, some people can't handle a neurological disease. They don't know what to do. But I wouldn't let that stop you from going to social events. That's my opinion. And then find the people who want to be supportive. Some people really want to be supportive, and those are the ones that you need to find. So I hope that helps, and I encourage, and don't worry about bringing the party down. Go in, and if they ask about your wife, you can say, just have something that you'll say quick, like, she's doing fine, or I'm getting help, or blah, 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 something, and then start talking about other things. so that you bring the conversation around to other issues. So I hope that might help because I'd love to see you stay socially involved. Susan says that another way that she goes back to sleep is to pray. So that for those of you that have a faith, that would be absolutely something to do. Let's see if there's any others that I haven't already addressed. Let's see here. So Deborah is confirming that for PSP patients, some of you might have PSP, that melatonin is not good. Kathy has said she has also heard some yoga poses you can get to sleep with. Kathy, that's very interesting. Where can people find those? Maybe just Google yoga poses for sleep. What's your recommendation, Kathy? Well, Kathy's responding to me hopefully on that. I did want to share with you an email I got today from someone. I don't know if she's on the, if Linda is on the webinar or not, but she says, how do I handle the feelings of being invaded when caregivers are in my home? I'm glad to have them, but I feel they've taken my space. I don't feel as though I have any time to myself unless I leave the house. My husband has advanced Parkinson's disease with high risk of falling. So I responded to her saying, first of all, it's great that she has people in the house, but you know that they are like invaders of your space. But don't let that stop you from bringing people in because there's the upside there that's so important. So I encouraged Linda that she might want to find a corner of her house that's just hers, that when people come in, she goes to that corner. Maybe it's a place where she has pictures and decorations and a book to read or music to listen to, her retreat place that she can see as her own, that no one's going to invade. And then finally, I also encourage her to remember the serenity prayer, to accept the things that we cannot change. And she needs the help. And so that means her space is going to be invaded. So acceptance is a very powerful thing. And sometimes just recognizing that you just need to accept it is a way to then move forward and then find and look for the positives. Look for the positives in what you're getting by them coming instead of the negatives of what you're losing. So I wanted to share that with you. I thought that was a great question that others may be feeling. Kathy did respond on the yoga. Yes, on yoga, the one I've heard about is lie on back, close to wall, put legs up wall and hold for a few minutes. And Nanette says, agree. She needs to have a room or place in the home that's all hers. She's blessed to have the help. Isn't that right, Nanette? And Gloria says, thank you. Oh, for the webinar. Oh, I appreciate your time. Well, I'm so glad that you are enjoying it. So let me wrap it up here. I don't see any other additional questions, or you feel free to email me and I'll give you my address in a moment. All right. So we just did the questions. I just wanted to mention once again the webinar that's coming up, which is called Persisting in the Face of Caregiving Difficulties, Moving from Pessimism to Optimism. This is a topic that I feel really passionate about. I speak a lot to businesses and other caregiver groups too, so I'm anxious to do that webinar in June. So mark that on the calendar and you'll get that in the follow-up email. I also wanted to let you know I have a YouTube channel. I have had it for quite some time. I just keep forgetting to tell people. So you can just type in Janet Edmunson. Just spell my last name correctly, Edmunson, no second D there. And you'll see all of my other webinars are there, as well as some other talks that have been recorded when I've spoken at conferences. There is one there when I've spoken at a Parkinson's conference, which might be of interest to some of you. So go to YouTube and check it out. Again, I just wanted to mention that I do have books that I've written about our experience that you can find at my website, affirmyourself.com, or at Amazon or your local bookstore. Okay, now here is the cartoon I promised to share with you, and I just love it. I want to give you a second to look at it. So reframe your negative thoughts. Shift your focus from the negative to the positive. See that sunshine each day. And with that, I'm going to say, here's my information to contact me if you want to write me. Any email you have of mine will get to me. This is the one that's easier to remember, affirmyourself.com. And then thank you so much for attending tonight. And with that, I'm going to say good night. The subject of my June webinar, I'm sorry, Deborah, that you asked, is persisting. What is it? Persisting in the face of caregiver difficulties, moving from pessimism to optimism. So thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you at the next webinar that we have, and I wish you the best. Take care. Bye-bye. You're welcome. You're all welcome. Thank you so much.